The phrase more danico is a medieval Latin legal expression which may be translated as, in the Danish manner, or, by Norse customary law. It designates a type of traditional marriage practiced in Northern Europe during the Middle Ages. The institution. The examples that have come down to us involve powerful rulers in a union with a high-born woman of somewhat lesser rank. Rarely, it occurred to legitimize an abduction, as with Rollo and Popper, who was taken after a battle at Bayeux, but this is not a defining characteristic. While Roman law had not distinguished between elopement and abduction, the distinction was significant in Germanic law. Still, according to Reynolds, the consent of the parentess was required in the more danico case. This consent could still be obtained after the fact, if an elopement was involved. The word secular here should not be interpreted to mean that no context of Germanic religion was involved. Although the form of any ritual that might have been employed is unknown, it is sometimes assumed that it was a type of hand-fasting. More danico permitted polygyny, but is not synonymous with it. The putting away of a more danico wife could apparently be done at the mere wish of the husband. The rights of the wife are unclear. Often the putting away was done with the intention of marrying a still higher-ranking woman, more cristiano, but since there are numerous instances of the husband returning to the more danico wife, it is possible that the relationship had merely been deactivated or kept in the background. The union could also be fully dissolved, so that the wife was free to marry another man. Her consent in the matter may or may not have been required. Again, the consensual aspect is unknown. By tradition and customary law, the children of such a relationship were in no way considered of lesser rank or disadvantaged with respect to inheritance. Many sons more danico went on to become dukes or kings by succession or conquest. Increasingly discouraged by the Christian Church, the practice gradually died out. Proponents of the Friedelayer theory claim that the institution left a vestige in the institution of morganatic marriage, but this interpretation is now discredited. Status of Germanic marriages in a Christian society. It was not until the nation consciousness of the Western nations was well developed and national laws were codified that it became the norm that all persons in a country were to be subject to the same law. Previously, each man was held accountable according to the laws of his own people. By accepting baptism and vassalage under a Christian prince under Charles the Simple after the Treaty of St. Clair-sur-Epte in 911, Rollo had placed the Vikings of Normandy on the inevitable path of Christianization, but they clung to some old customs. There was a perennial political tension between canon law and the traditional law. The Church deprecated this type of traditional union, employing the terms bastardy and concubinage. On a purely political level, temporal rulers of more fully Christianized entities did not ignore the advantage of denigrating their enemies in moral terms with respect to their marriage customs. The instrumentality of Christian clergy at a marriage ceremony was not specifically required by the Church until the Council of Trent on November 11, 1563. Historical examples. The Roman ethnographer Tacitus, writing in his De Origine Situ Germanorum, described the customs of the Germanic tribes and praised their monogamy. However, by the Viking Age they had acquired a reputation for their polygyny. Speaking of the Swedes, Adam von Bremen said, Norman chronicler William of Jumiges uses the term explicitly to refer to two relationships. Rollo, founder of the Norman dynasty, had taken captive at Bayeux Popper, daughter of a Count Berengar. Dudo of St. Quentin relates that they had been joined in marriage. William of Jumiges describing that Rollo had joined himself to her by more danico. She was mother of his son William Longsword. It is related that he put Popper aside to marry Gisela, daughter of Charles the Simple, and that when Gisela died, he returned to Popper. However, the absence of any record of this royal princess or her marriage in Frankish sources suggests the entire supposed marriage to Gisela may be apocryphal. William Longsword, in his turn, had a son and heir by a woman whose name is given as Sprota. William of Jumièges reports that Longsword was bound to her pursuant to the Emos Danicus. The chronicler Flaudoad refers to her simply as Longsword's Breton concubine. William would formally marry Louis-Garde of Amandois, daughter of Heribert II, Count of Amandois, Dodo i.e. 32, who following William's death remarried to Thibaut, Count of Blois. Sprota, who was mother of Longsword's heir, Richard I, Duke of Normandy, is said to have been forced to become concubine of Espaleng, the rich owner of several mills, by whom she became mother of Rodulf of Ivry, although it is unclear if this occurred at the time of William's marriage to Louis-Garde, or at his death. Modern historians have applied the term to various irregular or polygynous unions formed by several other monarchs of the Viking Age, including Harold Fairhair, Canute the Great, Harold Godwinson and Sir Paul mac Dunlanger. The Latin phrase, known to us from the histories of William of Jumièges and Orderic Vitalis, the purport of the phrase more danico is based in both the historical context, as well as in the meaning of the words within the fabric of the Latin language and the underlying Old Norse. Orderic Vitalis spoke Old English until the age of 10, when he was forced to adopt Norman French. He wrote in a stilted, but fluent and educated medieval Latin. In the vernacular he would have spoken of the custom as Danische Manieri, as would William of Jumièges, who was Norman, but also wrote in Latin. More, by custom, is the ablative case of the Latin word for manner, the subject form being emos. In Lewis and Short's Latin Dictionary, the semantic range of the Latin word emos is elongated along the axis of arbitrary required, extending from want or caprice on the one end to law or precept on the other end. Manner, custom, way, usage, practice, fashion, want, as determined not by the laws, but by men's will and pleasure, humor, self-will, caprice, tempora, mores, what times, what fashions. 2. The will as a rule for action, custom, usage, practice, want, habit, leges mori servient, laws serve custom. 3. In an archaic or poetic sense, and in post-Augustinian Latin, a precept, law, rule, mos maiorum, the constitution of the Roman Republic. Thus the term emos more captures the ambiguity between the official Christian view of the practice as a despicable and self-indulgent fashion, on the one hand, and the Germanic institution sanctioned by ancient traditional law, on the other hand. Danico during the Viking Age, the essentially tribal entities that became the modern Scandinavian nations differed in some customs, but had a concept of themselves as a unity. For example, according to the Grey Goose laws of the Icelandic Commonwealth recorded in 1117, Swedes, Norwegians, Icelanders and Danes spoke the same language, using Dansk tunga or Dansk tunga or Norront mal to name their language. Old Norse. Here, Dansk meant Norse. Furthermore, more danico was not merely a Norse custom, but prevalent among other Germanic peoples such as the Franks. It is also worth noting that Rollo, founder of the Norman dynasty, is claimed as Norwegian in the Norse sagas, but as Danish by William of Jumièges. Bibliography. Adam von Bremann. History of the Archbishops of Hamburg. Bremann. Francis J. Chan, New York. Columbia University Press, 1959. OCLC 700044. Freeman, Edward Augustus. The History of the Norman Conquest of England, Its Causes and Its Results. Oxford, The Clarendon Press, 1877. Volume 1, p. 624. Notex. Danish Marriage. Lewis, Charlton T., and Charles Short. A Latin Dictionary. Founded on Andrew's edition of Freud's Latin Dictionary. revised, enlarged, and in great part rewritten by Charlton T. Lewis, Ph.D., and Charles Short, L.D., Oxford, Clarendon Press, 1879, ISBN 0-19-864201-6, available online here. Orderic Vitalis, Historia Ecclesiastica, Reynolds, Philip Linden, Marriage in the Western Church, the Christianization of Marriage during the Patristic and Early Medieval Periods. Part 5, Germanic Law, Irregular and Informal Marriage, pp. 101 ff. E.J. Brill, Leiden, Netherlands, 2001. ISBN 978-0-391-04108-0. Taylor, Henry Osborne. The Classical Heritage of the Middle Ages. 3rd edition. New York. The Macmillan Company, 1911. Thrupp, John. The Anglo-Saxon Home, A History of the Domestic Institutions and Customs of England, from the 5th to the 11th Century. Longman, Green, Longman, and Roberts. Republished 2002 by Adamant Media Corporation. Available online here. William of Jumiges, al. Gesta Normanorum Ducum. About 1070.